One thing that has stood above all across this national season is that we still have Dylan Cruz. So let's kind of revisit that pick. What would you have done in that number 2 overall selection? To me, it's pretty damn easy.
You are Locked On Nationals, your daily Washington Nationals podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
And thank you all for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcast. I'm your host, Ryan Clary. You can catch me over on Twitter at RyanClary11 and as well as the show page at LO_Nationals for all your latest Nationals news and notes. And of course, make sure to check us out on all streaming platforms. Wherever you get your podcast, just search Locked On Nationals. Over on YouTube, search Locked On Nationals and hit that subscriber button. Later on in today's show, we'll be kind of unpacking the Nationals MLB draft. And really over the last few years, as we all kind of know, the Nationals in the past, they have not really done too well when it comes to the MLB draft. So let's kind of just debrief on everything, because I think in today's show, we're going to be talking a lot about these 2023 draftees, what they did in their first few at-bats in the down in the minors, really all that fun stuff. That is what today's going to be about. But first, let's narrow in on Dylan Cruz, the number 2 overall pick in the 2023 MLB draft from LSU, the Golden Spikes Award winner, the MVP of college baseball, national champion with Louisiana State, alongside with his teammate, Paul Skeens. And let's kind of revisit that real quick, because we all remembered when the Nationals were going to be taking Paul Skeens there at number 2 overall. That's what everyone was talking about. No one was saying that Dylan Cruz would fall to the Nationals right there at number 2. But as time kind of went on, as Paul Skeens got a little bit more dominant, that's when the Pirates kind of decided to really shoot their shot, because at that moment, the reason why that they took Paul Skeens over Dylan Cruz, it's not because that Paul Skeens is going to be a more impactful player. He certainly could be. But at this moment, just from kind of looking at both these guys, and really for someone like myself who I watch college baseball, I've seen both these guys play in action many, many, many times. Paul Skeens only went number 1 because the Pirates will never have an opportunity to get a starting pitcher of his caliber, similar as to why they took Garrett Cole number 1 way back in the day as well, I believe back in 2013. So with all that aside here, the Pirates, if they were to just simply go off of talent, in my opinion, the pick would still be Dylan Cruz right there at the number 1 overall selection. But the Nationals, they lucked their way in to getting the number 1 prospect in this draft. And yes, he is the number 1 prospect. Let's just reiterate that fact of this, because when you talk about 5-tool talents, in my opinion, Dylan Cruz is one of the guys that you really are going to think of down the line with this Nationals team. And not only just the Nationals, but really across Major League Baseball. Because Dylan Cruz, yes, there's many different things that he does well. But one thing that is kind of what separates himself from the pack, that you could say, well, it's his hit tool. And what he did so far just this season down in the minors. And again, yeah, he struggled just a tad bit down in Double-A. But we know the talent that Dylan Cruz possesses. Is that really going to be an issue for you if he's been playing baseball since the middle of February and then all the way through mid-September? I mean, that is a long time playing baseball nearly every single day, making that World Series run back in college and all that stuff. Dylan Cruz is still going to be an impact player. And yes, again, the wheels fell off just a little bit for him down the line. But at this moment, what's the concern with that? Who really cares about that with this guy? Because we know what Dylan Cruz can really do up in the majors. This is going to be a guy who's going to be an impact player from day one. So when the Nationals, at first when Paul Skeens went number 1 overall, I was still pretty stunned just because of the talent that Dylan Cruz possesses. He's not really advertised as a 5-tool talent. But when you kind of look around Major League Baseball and kind of the skill set that Dylan Cruz does have at his really arsenal, that is why I believe he's going to be that kind of 5-tool sort of talent. Now, is he going to steal 40-plus bags? No. Is he going to hit 50 home runs? No. But he's got a little bit of everything. And kind of talking across Major League Baseball, meeting with scouts, whatever it is, reading all these different articles that Keith Law has to offer, or whatever you are looking at, they will still say that Dylan Cruz has the potential to be an MVP candidate nearly every single year. Now, it's not going to click right then and there up in the majors. It's going to take some time to develop. But this pick right here this year, the number 2 overall pick for Dylan Cruz, that is why this Nationals team so desperately needed a pick like this. He was a slam dunk pick for the Nationals this year. And in fact, in my opinion, this was the pick that just simply had to be made. And if you were to tell me, Ryan, you have the number 1 overall pick, who are you going with? I'm going with Dylan Cruz still over Paul Skeens any single day of the week. And the reason why that is, when you have a player like Dylan Cruz who's so good with his hit tool, he's got a little power, he can play center field, he's got a little speed as well that, in my opinion, I think is pretty underrated as well. He's got so many different tools just at the tip of his fingertips. And compared to Paul Skeens, who's going to be pitching once every 5-6 days down in the major leagues, and we all know throwing 99 miles per hour and kind of the way that he throws in general, we know what that means, especially here in DC. Tommy John surgery is inevitable with Paul Skeens. So that's 1 year down the drain already for someone like that. And again, I'm not wishing this, I'm not wish casting this at all for Paul Skeens, but still, that's the reality of it. That is something that you kind of have in the back of your head. And we know our luck with pitchers here in DC. We've had Steven Strasburg have Tommy John early on in his career. Cade Cavalli, a first-round pick, Tommy John surgery early on in his career. Just last year, Jake Bennett having Tommy John surgery as well. There's a lot of different guys, high draft picks in this Nationals organization that have had to go through that procedure. But even furthermore than that, that is kind of why I wouldn't really take Paul Skeens at this moment. And really going back to mid-July when the draft was, when the Nationals got Dylan Cruz at the number 2 overall pick, that was something that not only did a lot of people didn't really expect up until that draft, but really it was still a surprise just because of the talent that Dylan Cruz has compared to what Paul Skeens has. And Paul Skeens, he's a tremendous talent. Don't get me wrong. If the Nationals, if they were to end up with him at number 2 overall, I would have been thrilled. But Dylan Cruz is simply going to be the more impactful player. Is he going to be some Hall of Fame player? Who knows at this moment? That's too crazy to put Hall of Fame expectations on him this early. But still, that's the kind of talent that this guy has. He's so good at nearly everything that he does, playing that center field position and playing an above average center field as well, having a solid arm, having good instincts out there. He can run the bases, he can hit for a little power, and he can hit like no one else across the sport at this moment in time. Dylan Cruz is going to make his impact at some point here in the 2024 season. It's inevitable. He's going to hit his way through the minor leagues, and he's going to start out in Double-A Harrisburg as he ended off this last year. And yes, again, let's revisit that. He did struggle in Double-A. Is that really just a competition thing with him? Who knows? But I don't really think it is. I think it's more so just a fatigue thing. This guy has never played as much baseball as he probably did this year and never has played it at this high of a competitive level. Starting in mid-February, again, mid-February, that's when the Super Bowl was going on. Playing regular season baseball games all the way through June there, getting to the MLB draft, getting selected by the Nationals, and then hitting the ground running down in the minor leagues, getting one game of rookie ball in, going to Fredericksburg, and then getting quickly shipped up to Double-A Harrisburg. That is a lot to put on a 21-year-old kid in just 1 year. And again, this is after going number 2 overall in the draft, in which some teams kind of choose to rest those players and kind of give them a little bit more time off. And Dylan Cruz did have some time off as Yohandy Morales kind of got right into the swing of things. He's also in this conversation as well. Andrew Pinckney is in the conversation as well. But when Dylan Cruz goes as deep as he did in the playoffs, and he still put up these pretty big numbers down in the minor leagues, considering he batted .292, a .377 OBP, and a .467 slug that was an .844 OPS in those 35 games, adding 5 home runs, 29 RBIs, 38 strikeouts, in which a lot of those came down in AA. But even then, the Nationals, looking back at this draft, it's going to be a good one. I can tell you that right now. And it's not just because of what Dylan Cruz brings to the table. The Nationals, they've got a plethora of talent in this draft, whether it be high school pitchers or whether it be proven college power bats that have made a difference already down in the national system and are probably going to be quick risers as well. The Nationals, as we said back in July, this was kind of a farm system altering kind of draft for this team, in which they so desperately needed at so many different turns of this organization. So let's kind of get into those guys as well. Yohandy Morales, the 2nd round pick for the Nationals, a 1st round talent as well. There's a lot of different things to talk about with him and what he has done so far in the minor league. So let's talk about that. But before we get into that, let me tell you guys about our good friends over at Ibotta. And guys, how does free Thanksgiving sound? This year, Ibotta is here to give you cash back and help you make sure your Thanksgiving table is complete, because who wants turkey without the gravy? Starting November 1st, for the 4th year in a row, Ibotta is giving 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving feast. Just add the offers in the app to redeem for everything you need to make your Thanksgiving feast complete. All you have to do is shop at your favorite retailers and upload your receipt. Ibotta also gives you cash back on hundreds of grocery items, from produce to personal care to pantry goods, so you can make sure you're beating inflation no matter what you're purchasing. So download the Ibotta app and use code MLB to get 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving dinner starting November 1st. Just go to the App Store or Google Play Store and download the free Ibotta app and use code MLB. That's IBOTTA in the Google Play or App Store and use code MLB. Again, use code MLB and get 100% cash back on your Thanksgiving dinner starting November 1st. Thank you guys for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day, as we are free and available wherever you get your podcasts. And of course, we're kind of talking about today's 2023 MLB draft, the impact that they have had so far in the national system, and really just the growth and all the different things that has kind of happened along this little magical carpet ride, you could say. Because as we've kind of been talking about a lot over the last few months, I truly do believe that this Nationals draft, the 2023 MLB draft, the Nationals, they have a chance to have multiple impact, kind of really high ceiling guys in just the handful of their first few picks. And it started out with 2nd round pick Yohandy Morales. When the Nationals got him in the 2nd round, first pick of the 2nd round in the MLB draft, Yohandy Morales was the number 20 prospect on MLB.com's draft rankings just over this last summer. He was expected to be a 1st round pick. In a lot of different cases, he was expected to go probably in the mid-20s there. Really, I think I saw a lot of teams had him going to the Yankees as well. A lot of different teams that were in the mix for Yohandy Morales, but ultimately he fell to the Nationals. And what he did this year, well, we talked about what Dylan Cruz did and how impressive he was, right? Dylan Cruz was wildly impressive, playing all that baseball so far this year, getting his first reps down in the minors, and he looked really good. Yohandy Morales told him to hold his beer. Yohandy Morales batted .349 this year, got on base at a .423 clip, had a slugging of .494 and a .917 OPS in just 42 games. And also, he is a big power bat. And I'm not just talking about someone who's going to hit 405-foot home runs. This is someone who could hit 440-footers just really at any given moment. And he can hit both righties and lefties. This year, down in the minors, and again, in those 42 games, having that huge slugging numbers, having the high OPS, he did all of that without hitting a single home run across rookie ball, across Fredericksburg, high A, and then, of course, double A as well. Yohandy Morales is going to be the guy that I want to see in the majors aggressively quick. And I think this is someone who could also make that jump into the top 100s just simply off of what he did this year. Now, being a top 100 prospect doesn't really mean anything. It doesn't. These rankings are just kind of for the fans, for us. They're for us to kind of nibble on and enjoy and talk about our favorite prospects. But I think that Yohandy Morales is starting to get some national attention because, number one, his exit velo as well. Over this course of the season, that's something that he continued to prove and just jump on. And yes, Yohandy Morales is going to be one of those kind of analytical darlings, I think, when it's all said and done. Just because of what he did this year, 16 doubles, 4 triples as well. He even had a stolen base, walked 19 times, struck out 36 times in those 42 games. And again, he struck out a lot also in Double-A Harrisburg, as Dylan Cruz did, and as well as our next guy that we'll talk about here any second now. But these are the impactful selections that the Nationals have just kind of been missing on in the past. And I feel so giddy about what could be happening with Yohandy Morales. Getting a top 20 prospect in this draft in the second round, that is just something, again, that this Nationals team needed. They needed someone to be able to kind of maybe bank on in the later rounds, because we all know this. The Nationals, and we're going to talk about this a little bit later on of today's show, but the Nationals, they have not really been able to really find their secret formula in the draft ever since drafting Bryce Harper and Steven Strasburg and Anthony Rendon. And they've made some great trades, including for Trey Turner back in the day. But the MLB draft has never really been Mike Rizzo's thing. He's never really kind of gotten a hold of it yet and hasn't really been able to draft all these impactful guys in years past. He's starting to get back on track as the Nationals get higher selections. But even then, we all know that's kind of been his Achilles heel over the years. So to get someone like Dylan Cruz in round 1 and then get someone like Yohandy Morales in round 2, that is something just right then and there that is so just makes me happy. It just makes me happy as a fan because, number one, we need these impactful bats in the system. And yes, you could also say, well, the Nationals also need pitching. You're 100% correct. Good news is we got Travis Sykor in round 3 of this year's draft. And Travis Sykor, in my opinion, is probably the most interesting prospect in the national system. Did not really pitch in any competitive level down in the minors this year. Didn't have an appearance in rookie ball. 19 years old. But what this kid possesses, 3rd round pick of this year's draft, 71st overall selection. Well, he already throws in the upper 90s, and he's 6'6" and 230 pounds already. Again, 19-year-old out of high school. And he also, well, he's got 3 really good pitches, in my opinion. When you look at his fastball, again, upper 90s with a little bit of movement on there. He's got a slider that sits at a 55 grade, according to MLB.com, and then a splitter, which is an interesting pitch to have at this 19-year-old age. That's at a 60 grade right now. I'll say this right here and there. He probably has the best splitter in this MLB draft. Whatever that means may not mean all that much to you, but to have a 19-year-old with such a weird, wacky pitch so developed at this age, number one, that's just a good thing to have because splitters are a useful pitch. And I think, in my opinion, it's always kind of been an underutilized pitch by a lot of different guys, especially right-handed pitchers, to kind of go in on those right-handed batters. But even then, that tells me that he is so advanced at his craft. Whatever he has been doing to kind of develop that pitch and especially get such a high grade on it, as obviously these scouts who work for MLB.com, some are former MLB scouts. Obviously, a lot of these guys have worked in MLB front offices. They know what it takes. They know kind of how to grade guys. And of course, yes, they do miss. But the Nationals, they made sure that they signed Travis Sykor because they gave him a ton of money in this year's draft. And they should have. They should have signed him above slot. And again, this is kind of something that the Nationals haven't really been able to do in years past. They've done this at times, whether it be first baseman, TJ White, whatever it is. The Nationals, they have done this before, but it just has never been really for success. And the Nationals, this is where they've kind of not been their best, in my opinion. This is kind of when Mike Rizzo, but I'm not his biggest fan when it comes to the MLB draft. But I think what they did this year, and also with the hiring of Danny Haas the former scout for the Arizona Diamondbacks, Brad Ciolek, the who ran the draft for the Baltimore Orioles. Adding those two guys into the fold now with these young talents, this is going to be a big deal in my opinion. This is going to be the things that you can really kind of hold them accountable for, because these guys have done it. Brad Ciolek with the Baltimore Orioles and the talent that they have developed over the last few years has been incredible in the Baltimore Orioles system. Danny Haas, scouting director from the D-backs, what they have done over the last few years, getting the Arizona Diamondbacks to the World Series after losing like 110 games just a few years ago. This is a team that is now already going into the World Series, even better than what the Baltimore Orioles have done. But even then, the Orioles were the second best team in baseball this year, winning 100-plus games after having a not bad year last year, but it still wasn't an amazing year. 2 years ago, they were one of the worst teams in all of baseball still. The jumps and the leaps that those organizations have made with guys like Brad Ciolek, who's the head of the scouting or the head of their draft department, at least with the Baltimore Orioles, and Danny Haas, who is their scouting director for the D-backs. If you look at both those teams, number one, the Orioles, they have been the best team to build through the draft. That just starts right then and there. And then Danny Haas, getting all these different guys, these young pieces that they have already spread across the Diamondbacks farm system right now, Corbin Carroll to consider, all these different things. The Nationals now have this ability with two different guys from two successful organizations to kind of make this beautiful music here in Washington, D.C. And in my opinion, this is something that should be happening with the Nationals here soon. You want to see teams build through the draft. And the reason why I say that, well, I'll tell you why I really think that. But before we get into that, let me tell you guys about our good friends over at Jase Medical. And guys, Jase Medical, there is a lot of uncertainty in the world today, and it's important to be prepared, whether it be unrest in the Middle East, hurricanes and tornadoes in Florida, earthquakes, and much, much more. And of course, blizzard season is right around the corner. But the Jase case is a personalized emergency medication kit that contains 5 essential antibiotics that treat the most common and deadly bacterial infections. You can also customize your case and add additional life-saving medications based on your unique needs. Jase Medical now offers customizability for your Jase case with dozens of add-on medications. Choose the medications that best fit you and your family's unique needs. Important, Jase is continually working to expand their medication offerings. In those recent efforts, they added ivermectin as an option in the Jase case. And of course, gift cards. You can buy a gift card for a family or your loved ones so that they can get a Jase case of their own. So go to jasemedical.com and enter Locked On at checkout for a $20 discount on your order. That's promo code Locked On at jasemedical.com. Now we get back into it as the Nationals again. Let's kind of talk about this because this is something I truly do believe in. We all know that we've talked about the struggles with the draft in the recent years, whether it's Eric Fetty in the first round, who, by the way, is just killing it down in the KBO. So good for him. Happy for him. Jackson Rutledge as well. 2019 first round pick. We're not done with him yet, but he's not going to be that kind of star that we had hoped for back in the day. Whether it be, you could name that first round pick in years past, Carter Kieboom. And at this moment in time, Elijah Green is kind of in this foundation as well. The Nationals just have not really figured it out. They've never really had a problem identifying talent because a lot of these different guys were very hyped up. There's a ton of rumors and kind of speculation around them about what they could be at the major league level. And drafting out of high school, it's really tough to kind of pinpoint all the different talent and the skills that these guys have. But the Nationals and what they did this year, in my opinion, this is going to kind of turn the clock around a little bit. This is what's going to turn this organization back into a contender because as we kind of talked about in yesterday's show, there's multiple different ways to build a team. The way that I believe that a team should be built starts with the MLB draft. And the reason why I say that is because you have to have your homegrown talent. You cannot just go out there and spend like you're the Los Angeles Dodgers or the Yankees or the Mets. We ain't those teams. It's unfortunate. I want to be those teams. Of course, I want to go out there and sign Mookie Betts. I want to sign Juan Soto to a massive extension. I want to sign Trey Turner to a huge contract. I want to do all those things, but in reality, it's just not going to happen. We're not a small market team whatsoever. Never believe that. We will never be a small market team. Washington, D.C. is not a small market, period, blank, right then and there. But it also doesn't take away from the fact that the Nationals, they still have to go back to their roots. And their roots, going back to that 2012 team that broke out, the Nationals, they really only spent on a handful of guys in that year's really team. Jason Worth. Other than that, not much. The Nationals, they built through the draft. They got a lot of luck, built the bullpen up, built the starting pitching up, draft Steven Strasburg #1 overall, get Gio Gonzalez through a trade, draft Jordan Zimmerman, draft Ryan Zimmerman, draft Bryce Harper. All those different guys who made differences in those kind of early on 2012 teams, 2014, 2016, whatever it is. All those teams, now, not all of them were built through the MLB draft, but a lot of the core guys, Ian Desmond early on in the year, those were draft guys. These were guys that the Nationals developed on their own and got the most out of. Now, again, there are multiple different ways to do this. You still can go into free agency and spend on a few stars and then kind of fill out the rest of them, similar to what the Texas Rangers did with Corey Seager and Marcus Semien, and they're now in the World Series. But still, they also have the farm system to back it up. They've had a ton of talent come through their system over the last few years, and in my opinion, they've been one of the better development organizations over the last few years. Again, that is something that the Nationals, they're going to have to build on, and they're going to have to take that recipe and make some good food once again with it, because this Nationals team, again, they can't just go out there and spend and solve all their issues. A lot of these issues are going to have to be solved through the draft. Now, luckily, here's this. It looks like at this moment, you got a shortstop. You don't have to worry about that position so far. Down in the minors, it looks like you got a third baseman with Brady House. It looks like you got a center fielder with Dylan Cruz. It looks like you got a right fielder with James Wood. Those are a lot of key positions right there that should be set to go. Keibert Ruiz also in the fold. 2 of your 5 starting pitcher and rotation spots are also already in the fold. The Nationals are closer than what you may think. But here's the thing. It all kind of has to come into fruition eventually. The Nationals, they're going to have to find ways to get talent from later rounds in the draft, whether it be Andrew Pinckney, kind of a mid-round pick out of Alabama this year, who also killed the baseball this year and was very impressive in his 41 games, had an .872 OPS, 4 home runs, 20 RBIs, 38 strikeouts in those 41 games as well this year. But again, it's all about the draft for the Nationals and hiring Brad Ciola, getting Danny Haas in here, kind of heading the National scouting department. It's going to be a big deal. And I do believe that the Nationals will kind of get this rebuild kind of re-kicked once again. And I think it's going to be taken into another gear heading into this offseason. Thank you guys for making Locked On Nationals your first listen every single day. And of course, tomorrow's show, Game 1 of the World Series, we'll be talking about that and much more. But until then, I'll catch you on the flip side. Have a good one.